Now, let's start our discussion on C++. So, our major importance of this course is dealing with the C++ programming. So, this is the basic history of C++. It was actually introduced in 1985 by a talented computer scientist called Jan Stouster. We can note B is silent here. So it's Jan Stouster in 1985. So it is the successor of the C programming language. So C++ is also called C with classes. And this language was majorly updated three times and it's still been used in programming. So that's the peculiarity of C++. So it was updated three times in 2011, 2014 and 2017 to different standards called C++11, C++14 and C++17. So now let's see, these are the basic components of C++. So whenever we create a C++ program, it will be always dependent on all these concepts. So these are the basic concepts of C++ programming: objects, classes, data abstraction and encapsulation, inheritance and polymorphism. Then we have two additional points: dynamic binding and message passing. So let's see each of these components in detail. So what is object? So consider a vehicle. It can be two-wheeler vehicle, it can be three-wheeler vehicle, any number of wheels are possible, right? So in that case, each of these vehicles can be treated as an object. And what is the peculiarity of these vehicles? So suppose I am talking about bicycle as a vehicle. What are the features of bicycle? It has two wheels, right? It has a bell, and it can also, what are the functions it can perform? It can run. If somebody is cycling on it, it can run on the road. So bicycle can be treated as an object. So this is a kind of an entity which our program concerns about. Suppose if we want like a place, a person, a bank account, a table of data, or any item a program can handle, that individual entity is called object. Now, what is class? In case of classes, it is a more generalized concept of objects. Like bicycle is an object, likewise another vehicle is car, right? That is also an object. So all these objects comes under the category of vehicle, right? It's all vehicles, and these vehicle can be termed as the class. So a class will be like having different objects, and it will be having different characteristics which will be common to all these objects. So classes, suppose we have the vehicle class like we discussed right now. So vehicle is a class. What are the characteristics of the vehicle? It can be wheels, speed, right? All these are the characteristics of the vehicles, and these characteristics are common to all of the objects in that particular class. Now let's talk about data abstraction and encapsulation. These are the most important concepts in C++ programming. So what is meant by data abstraction? Suppose in other forms of programming, we will be creating a program and the data and the functions are separate. We will be declaring or defining data somewhere. We will be writing functions associated with the data somewhere else. But in case of C++, we will bind these data and functions together with the help of objects. So like we have said, wheels and the bell are the characteristics or the data elements, and function or run is the functionality. That bicycle can run, it can travel. So that's the functionality of the bicycle. So all these data points and functionalities treated as a single entity. So that is called data abstraction. So maybe you will having a lot of questions at this point of time because you don't have any prior knowledge in this object orientation. But once we have our programs and start creating our programs, then we will have more idea about the abstraction and encapsulation or all these components of C++. Then another point of C++ is encapsulation. So it means we can bind the data and functions into a single unit. That is called encapsulation. So what is the peculiarity? It's more secure. Data is not accessible to the members who are not part of the class. Then we have inheritance. So in this case, we can consider an example. So inheritance help to make the components reusable. So let me clear the screen at once. So now we are talking about inheritance. So see what will happen like what is the concept of inheritance? Suppose we are talking about birds. So birds can be classified into flying birds and non-flying birds, right? Some birds can fly, but some cannot fly. And these birds have their characteristics, different attributes depending on them. So the attributes can be, some of them lay eggs, some of them fly, some of them have feathers. All these are the attributes tagging to the birds. Now in case of flying birds, it also have same attributes like these birds, right? But not everything. So flying birds can lay eggs. So this can be a property of the birds which can be inherited to flying birds. And in case of non-flying birds, also the same property can be inherited. So inheritance stands for getting the features or properties of one object or one class to another class. So if we classify birds as a parent class, then flying birds can have most of the properties of birds, and non-flying birds can also have most of the properties of the birds. We don't need to create like separate properties or separate attributes while we have a provision to copy the existing attributes of the birds. So inheritance means inheriting the properties from the parent class to a subclass. And this can be in multiple levels of inheritance. So we will be discussing inheritance in a separate chapter. So no need to worry on that. Now let's discuss about polymorphism. Polymorphism in the sense, poly means many and morphism means forms. So what is the real meaning of polymorphism? That is, the same thing can be done in different ways. Okay. So for example, consider the operation of addition. If we are adding two numbers, then we will get the sum of those two numbers, right? So the same add operator plus can be given another meaning if we want to add two strings. Suppose I have a string hello and I have a string hi, and I want to combine those strings and say that operation is also represented by plus sign, then that is the another meaning of the addition operator plus. So processing the data in different forms, data or objects in different forms are called polymorphism. And we will be discussing this also in a separate section, so you need not to worry about that. Now we can go to the dynamic binding concepts and message passing concepts of C++. So in case of dynamic binding, each and everything in C++ can be given at the runtime also. Compared to other programming languages, whether we will be able to give data prior to the runtime, C++ have a provision to give the data at the time of runtime. So that is called dynamic binding. Message passing stands for passing the information between different objects in the C++. So these are all the basic components of C++. So moving forward in this course, on different units, we will be having these things covered in detail. So if you have some confusions, please don't worry about that. We will be covering each and every components of C++ in depth on each of our modules.